Hello and welcome to Console Shock, and it is episode 75, Retro and Modern Gaming Chat with Trev and Stu. How's it going, Stu?
Hey Trev, how are you?
75, eh?
75, yeah, I'm feeling old now.
There's no console that had 75 at the end, though, to cover this time. No 64, there's a ton of them, but there's not any bits or anything, is there, around the 70-ish amount to do?
I was thinking of the GX4000.
I think we've got a few episodes to go till we get to that.
Yeah,
exactly. Ish. But yeah, I never actually owned one of them or even played one, so I couldn't really...
I actually had one.
Anyway.
It's such a waste of time.
Why?
I don't know. I got it in a box. It was really nice. It had everything with it. It was like sort of £30.
The Mega Drive was out then. You could have got that.
No, I bought it much later. It was.
Oh, okay.
I mean, at the time, I think I would have been crazy to buy
Yeah.
a GX4000, and I'm sure we'll talk about the GX4000 at length at some point on this
Well, I don't know about
podcast.
that. Can you do an hour-long show about that?
No, you can't. Honestly, got 30 games on it. It's a CPC 464, but without a keyboard.
That's it. We've done the episode.
That's it. Done it.
Not
Very good. Not many games.
Someone's angrily typing, the biggest GX4000 fan. What are you talking about? It's got burning rubber and and so on. I'm like, yeah, we'll probably piss them off now. But anyway, we do have a guest today, and it's going to be a really, really cool guest, because anybody that's like, well, look at our YouTube channel is probably where I would say is a good place to start with this, because this show had another form, didn't it, Stu? In the very beginning.
Yes, so it used to be video formats, and I was merely a guest, an extra. You could say
It's like 8 years
or
ago,
maybe just someone that stood in the background. There were two stars of Console Shock originally, and one of those was you, Trev.
Yeah.
And
Not about a star.
Well,
person, a presenting person. You were kind of you were in it, but you were obviously it took place.
I never felt it was my podcast or my show. It was, if it was anything, it was like a sort of a magazine show, and I was brought in to talk about one little thing, and you sort of you use the shop as but there were some videos when you went off to I think Gamescom, I want to say, where I wasn't even included. I'm not saying that's a negative. I wasn't included. You didn't even call me about that one.
In the shop.
Well, exactly. I was working in the shop, and I didn't think it was like, I was a member of the team or whatever. But the original host, Al, and I keep on saying the name, Alistair, but it's Al.
Absolutely, yeah. So we started off with the video version, as Stu described, in the most mangled, awful way you could possibly have described it. But it was it was a video, well, I guess kind of podcast, and this was in 2013, and we managed to bang out sort of 2 or 3 episodes. It took place in Stu's old shop, not Playnation games, but the one you had prior to that, wasn't it, Stu? The kind of broom cupboard.
Sort of M&M games, it was them, yeah.
Yeah, M&M games in Croydon, and obviously they're still based in Croydon as Playnation, but that's where Stu's old shop was. And it was my co-host at the time was Al. And Al, you are here with us today. So
I am, hello.
Co-founder of Console Shock. How you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. This is absolutely fantastic and exciting, especially after all this time.
8 years.
It's which is crazy. And I'm so glad that you guys have managed to keep Console Shock going. I think switching to a podcast form rather than a YouTube series, I think, has been just a brilliant move. And I'm really happy that Console Shock is still a thing.
Well, yeah, so thank you for that. I mean, obviously the production value has gone massively down, massively. It's literally at the bottom of the barrel, but that's okay. It still means we can knock out an episode without, with not a huge amount of effort and get our show out to people. But I mean, if we go back to how it started, obviously, we've been friends for a long, long time. Al obviously goes back on over a decade now, which is crazy. Yeah. We obviously worked together. Back in the day in retail, but it got to a point, I think, when obviously we became friends where we were working, but then we realized that we had quite a lot in common. We're into video games and old stuff and movies and, things like that. And I think we did start off, probably won't go into too much detail about this, but we always thought, maybe we could get into some kind of a podcasting thing. And obviously for people like us at the time with video games, I think it doesn't seem like it's a year old podcasting year, but 2013 and before that, 2010, 11, 12, I think sort of Angry Video Game Nerd is probably who you think of, and game trailers in those days. I think they're probably the ones you were watching as well, weren't they, Al?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And game trailers was huge back then.
It was, yeah, and it's
massive.
Gone now, I think, isn't it? Weirdly,
yeah. And the new owners deleted the library without telling anybody who was involved.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Really?
Yeah, so the entire archive just disappeared overnight, and a lot of people like Stuttering Craig, who was doing a lot of stuff, was just suddenly found out. Yeah, just found out that it all gone, and he's like, "What?"
That's horrible.
No warning. Yeah,
but that's a great example of how volatile things are when they're online like that. But so obviously you had a show that you did before you moved to London. Obviously, we met in London, didn't you? Before that, I don't know if you want to go into any detail about that, but that's how, as a result of that, you kind of wanted to keep that going or do a new season of that show, didn't you?
Yeah, and even before then, I mean, because like you said, we've been talking a lot about stuff that we were really interested in, and one of those things was Star Trek. And I remember that we were at your place, and you were kind of like, why don't we just do like a show? So we did an episode on Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah, it was like a review, wasn't it? Yeah. Still got it. I've still got that episode.
Oh, so you need to send that to me because I want to listen to that again after all this time. But yeah, we clicked really well on that. I thought that just the way that kind of went was fantastic. And that's when I was just like, okay, I've got a new host that I could bring on. It's just until then, like the previous podcast had kind of died. And it's just like, unless I would find somebody that I could banter with like that. And that was you. 100%.
Yeah.
So it was good to kind of start things up again with you.
Yeah, it was literally, I think you popped over to where I lived at the time. I'm actually, funnily enough, in the same building now, in a different flat in the same building. Yeah. Moved out of the area into East London not long after, you came down. But then moved back a few years ago, for nearly 5 years ago now. So yeah, kind of full circle, weird. But yeah, you came over like after work. I think we've both been working that day. Obviously, we're still working together in retail, and we were sort of saying, right, we're going to do it. We'll record this show. So yeah, we recorded it, and we just wanted to do a Star Trek podcast then, and we did one episode. We never released it and never really edited it. I think we knew straight away that maybe we could do a better version of this. That was a good first little run, but we never really thought, let's edit it, let's get it out. I don't know why. I think probably just we just thought maybe we'll do something. I think you already had designs on the new version of your old show. You already had designs on just doing the new version. So let's just do that. But yeah, I recorded it. I've still got it, and it was just like us sat in front of the laptop. I don't think we really haven't had any audio set up really. And we just spoke into my laptop and one evening, and that was it. And that was obviously there was enough there that we thought we should kind of do something else. And then we did your sort of you took your old show and you wanted to get it going again, as you say. You felt that we could do it together. So yeah, we did that for a little while, didn't we? We're looking at sort of 2010, 11 time.
Yeah, and we started sort of amassing a small team of people as well, and just to sort of expand things a little bit more. Especially as it was challenging because we both lived in London. It was like a 2-hour round trip within the same city.
Weird. Yeah, we're at different ends of the city. Yeah.
Yeah, so that did add some challenges, and it was before like nowadays, like right now, I'm in Canada, you guys are in England, and we can do this over the internet. Whereas back then you could do, but it wasn't really the norm.
Google Hangouts wasn't as strong, I think, then when you could probably Skype, I guess, but you couldn't record really well with that. Yeah,
I feel that the idea to focus more on gaming. I'm pretty sure you came up with that idea. To do like a YouTube series. Yeah,
the previous show was basically it wasn't necessarily about one thing. I think we probably did talk about obviously it was general kind of nerdy kind of stuff that we were both into.
And movies, TV shows, games, and like any topic went, really. There was, and if anything, I'd say that was probably its downfall, was that it wasn't structured in any kind of sense of the word at all.
No, I think because we would always say, like, you know, when we were going into the idea of we should do a show together, like people would hear us talking to each other and they would say at work, they'd be like, "Oh, guys, you guys should record that and release it." I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Oh, it's just funny. It's just funny, like listening to you guys." I was like, "Okay." And then we thought maybe maybe we should. So so it was an unstructured kind of, or like almost like a stream of consciousness thing. But it was we both enjoyed doing it. It was great, and we got some good feedback from, you know, mostly people that we worked with. Because we worked was a big place for a lot of people. We used to try and tell people about it there. Al did the editing. You did all the editing, and you know, you got the website out there. I just kind of turned up to sort of be the co-host, really. But yeah, it wasn't massively structured, and I think after about a dozen like episodes of that, I don't know what point. I mean, I've talked about where I started watching Stu's little videos that he used to put. This sounds weird. On YouTube, that he used to put out of his retro game shop, and obviously, and I think me and you, Al, we'd talked before about how, oh god, there's no, because we both moved to London, you know, within about a year of each other, and we're both into like retro games and video games generally, but retro games we talk about a lot. And I think there was a few times when we chatted about how there isn't really any shops to go to that have that stuff or anything, so we were kind of frustrated at that. And then I stumbled across Stu's YouTube channel, where he was doing pickup videos, weren't you, Stu, for your shop at the time?
Yeah, so we would just do basic, you know, with a phone and just sort of passing things under the camera, saying, "Oh, we just got this in. Oh, this is quite rare," or, you know, "This is a special edition," or something. It was just, and there's no real sort of structure to it, and we would upload those, and they were quite good for business. A lot of people would sort of see those, and they'll be sort of excited to watch the sort of the video of, you know, what have just been traded in, and then they might, you know, come down to the shop or order it over the telephone at that time or something like that, PayPal the money over, and we'll send it out. So it was a good little I don't know, marketing tool, really.
Yeah, and I don't think, like Al, I don't think we had a point with our old show where we said, right, we're stopping it. I think it was literally, there was just a lull period where we did one show and that went out, and then we just kind of, I think we got busy with other stuff, and we weren't like, you know, I think we're always going to do another one, but we just never got around to it. But in the meantime, I saw Stu's show, and I was like, and I think in one episode, Stu, you literally said, I don't know if your M&M Games videos are still lingering around on YouTube.
I think they are. They're all up there. If you search Playnation Games, there is a YouTube channel, and I don't believe Dan's taken any of them down. So you can go back and like, look at the earliest videos, and they're very, very raw. There's really, I mean, I couldn't edit videos. It was just a case of me holding the camera with one hand and then pulling games through sort of underneath on the counter, you know, before I left to go home. And then, but the point is that's what people wanted to see. Well, I thought that's what they wanted to see, was just here are the games that have been traded in, and, you know, when a particularly rare game, I might open it up and show the condition and things like that, and it would, you know, we'll get a good number of sort of viewers, and just, you know, people would search and then sort of find us. We had loads of people saying, "Oh, I saw your YouTube video, and I'm still after this." And we, you know, people always look at sort of videos from years earlier and go, "Oh, I saw you got this game trading. Have you still got it?" And this was 3 years ago, mate. You're crazy.
Sometimes I mean, you say like it's raw, but sometimes that simplicity works brilliantly. When you look at YouTube channels like Stuart Ashens or Carl Smallwood, they have a very basic, simple format that they know has worked, and they've kept that the entire time, which I have a lot of respect for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's still just doing the videos on his couch, isn't he? Like Stuart Ashens. It hasn't really changed. But yeah, so I saw your video, Stu. I think in one episode you literally said, "Oh, we're looking maybe to expand on our YouTube sort of stuff." So if that's something you're interested in helping us out with, let us know. And then I think I said to Al, like, check out this guy on YouTube, or you and Dan, these guys on YouTube, M&M Games, and maybe we could help them and we could expand our kind of podcasty show stuff, and maybe we could just go into more video game related stuff. And I think you were like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I don't know.
I was feeling that, like, also to do something a bit more structured, and it was also we hadn't done video before, and that was exciting. And being able to, I think it's one of those things where we nerded a lot about retro games a lot, but
definitely.
we never really did on the show. That was more just something that we always just talked about, and then finding out that there was this amazing store, and that's something that we could focus on. It seemed very exciting to me, and Stu and Dan were just very hospitable to us, really, and allowing us to, use their store as a backdrop, and to be able to sort of explore the games. And obviously we were able to then say, and any of these, like, if you're interested, all the stuff we've been talking about, you can actually just come down and buy. Was excellent as well.
Although I do remember, as a side note, there was another store that opened around this time as well.
I was just thinking about them as well.
Yeah. Retro Game Base. So everybody remembers them in Streatham. And just before, this was probably, I think, just before I discovered you, Stu, and M&M Games. They did a big push on Facebook and the internet generally. And Al, you remember this as well. We're going to be the biggest, like, retro game shop. We're opening it in London. I think they were sort of trying to market themselves as, like, the only retro game shop in London.
That was the thing that I was thinking of, was that we'd already done like a couple of episodes, and they were pushing that they were the only one, and we're like, hang on, that's definitely not true.
I think we went there, didn't we, Al? I think you came with me. I think we went to them in Streatham in South London. It's not that far from you, weirdly enough, Stu.
No, it was. Well, I mean, it was a 5-minute drive from where I used to live.
Yeah, that's it.
It was a good shop there. I always thought they're really nice guys in there. And they actually run 2 Four Quarters bars in London now.
Yes.
So fingers crossed with all the COVID craziness that they're still okay and whatnot. So I suggest when things are back up and running, is me and Trev, we should go down there, and I suggest other people to go there as well. It's they're always
we have actually been there. We did go.
We did, didn't we? Yeah, we went there. Yeah, the one in Hackney Wick, I think. It was
behind Stratford, behind the Queen Elizabeth Park in Stratford. That was cool with Dan as well, didn't I? think we all went
with Dan. It was a bit of a Christmas thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was cool. They had a Mega Drive at the one with the table was sat. I think we played Outrun for a little bit. I think it was really cool. So me and Al went. I think we literally went to them and we chatted to them about, are you interested in getting like some kind of a podcast thing going? And again, I don't know what happened. I think again it just drifted off again, or it was either that or because I discovered Stu, and I don't know. But you seemed a bit. I don't want to say more friendly, but I think maybe. I don't know. There was something about you, Stu. There was something about you.
All right, I've heard that before.
And I can 100% back that up, because you guys just seem so much more personable. There was, you kind of more welcoming, and it was a lot friendlier just in your store and things. And I agree with Trev that you guys just seem to be the people we wanted to work with, really.
Yeah, and I said we kind of the retro game based thing, we knocked it on the head, or it just kind of drifted off. I think ultimately they did make their own YouTube show.
They did one episode, one or two, but it had quite high production sort of quality from what I remember. But then
they hired a production company, like a small one.
Exactly, but that's almost. If you got to get a production company and you got to close the shop down for a day and all in, you got to work on scripts and work out how to do all your angles and then it becomes something that you can't just be sort of very reactive to. And that was what for me, it was always, I'll just film something on the phone, get up onto, no need for an intro. Who wants an intro? Who wants, support our Patreon at the end or anything? You don't need any of that. People just want to see what's being traded in and the condition of it, and so that's what was purely, and and I think sometimes we did videos, shop tours and things like that with a little bit more, I say, sort of production. And we did one Christmas special, some sort of crazy murder mystery, or I don't know, something happened, and some of the kids put on masks, and it's still up there if you want to watch it.
I never saw that. I definitely need to go back and see that one.
Yeah, got it. It was, yeah. I don't know what was going on, but I went along with it, and that's what we did. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously you were doing your own thing. Me and Al, we went to visit you. I think I'd already got in touch with you, outside of YouTube, Stu, to say like, hey, me and Al are interested in helping you out. We're looking to get a video game thing going on YouTube. And it's funny because I look at like 2013 when we were planning this. Some of the big YouTubers that I watch now were tiny then or didn't even exist. Yeah. The Retro Hour hadn't started. Dan and Ravi, who have had on the show, of course. I think I said that to him. I was like, you weren't even going when we started Console Shock. Retro Man Cave, he wasn't going.
Well, you can't say that. It's RMC now.
Oh, of course, yeah, God.
RMC the Cave.
Yeah. Miss Mad Lemon, I don't think she was around then. A lot of the ones that we watch now that are huge. And obviously, I'm not trying to sound like, if we really went berserk on it, we could be as big as any of them now. We've said before, Stu, haven't we, that I don't think we really want to be in some ways.
Yeah, I have to admit, I love to have thousands and thousands of pounds of ad revenue coming into our bank account every month. I wouldn't say no to that.
Put it like that.
I wouldn't mind having Raycon as our sponsors and getting loads of Raycon money.
Dollar Shave Club,
and the Dollar Shave Club, and what's it, Henry's Razors or something, Harry's Razors, Harry's Club.
Skillshare.
I wouldn't mind a bit of that money. I have to admit, but the point is it's something we do every sort of 2 weeks. Record a podcast, have a sort of a bit of a chat, and and that's what it is.
Yeah, and so we obviously agreed to all work together, and I think it was basically the show. I mean, it's on our channel. You can watch it. It's literally labeled as Console Shock 2013. We haven't deleted it or moved it. There's about 2 or 3 episodes that we managed to get around to doing in the end. I think there was one that I never finished editing. So there was one it might be around somewhere. God, that's a revelation. But yeah, there was an extra one I think we filmed that I never got around to finish editing, but we got a couple done, and it was basically me and you, Al. We were kind of hosting it, and we'd do sort of skits as well as we would pick out sort of stuff from your shop, wouldn't we, Stu, and talk about it. Yeah. And I think we'd have a segment where it was me and you, Stu, and we'd sort of Al would be directing, and then we'd sort of flip around, with Dan, get Dan involved as well, and you can say that we don't need to go into detail about this because you can watch them, but we'd put footage of the games in there. It was very well. I'm still quite proud of it to this day. It still turned out really well. I would love to be able to, if we had the time and the and everything. Obviously now we couldn't really do it, but we keep threatening to maybe try and do something similar, haven't we, Stuart?
Well, I think I mentioned to you it was I've got a mate of mine who collects old Macs. And he was, come round and you can do a video, and he's got G3s, G4s, all the different models, up until the latest, that big Pro with all the holes on the front. He absolutely loved, the cheese grater. He's got that and that great big screen.
That's cool.
The Pro screen. So anyway, but the point is, he was, come round and do a video, and
we might well do that then. We did a video show, didn't we, not long ago? So I've always been wanting to follow up on that. So
it could almost be because, and I mentioned to you or mentioned to him that mate Trev, he loves all the Apple IIs, and then my mate with his big collection was like, no, I don't like those old ones. No, I'm not interested in them.
He hasn't lived till he's seen the 2GS.
Well, that's what I told him.
Apple range is what I call it. But there you go. Hopefully we'll get to do that at some point. And also Heart of Gaming, obviously we've threatened there to try and go down there and film, because obviously an amazing space. Hopefully he'll be okay with COVID and everything. I can imagine he's all shut down at the moment, but that's what we did. That's what we did.
Release the Eurogamer
Expo
one? We did, yes.
Yeah, so we did that, didn't we, Al? We somehow got press passes, didn't we, to Eurogamer Expo? They're a lot stricter now than
anyone in there.
Yeah, we played Doom on the piano as well. They had the Doom piano set up. VR was obviously making a comeback for the first time around then.
Surgeon Simulator. I remember you played Surgeon Simulator, didn't you, in VR?
Yes. Yeah. Not successfully, but I did, and it was a good experience. I remember it being like, this is what VR was sold to us as in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, whenever it was. And that's when it felt like... Yeah, that's it, virtuality. It's like, this is what that was marketed as. It actually was starting to feel more like that than what it actually was.
It was like an early Oculus Rift, I think you would have used for that then. I'm not sure if it was actually finished then, was it, the Oculus Rift? I think it was still...
No.
PS4 and Xbox One were about to come out. They hadn't come out yet. And I remember we sat on a... was it Phil Harrison with the Xbox One? The Xbox guy was the bold dude. Harrison. We went to a presentation, didn't we? And it was mostly about like clips, how to take clips on your Xbox One, which I didn't even realize was a feature. And it was because I know the PS4 was advertising that a lot, but they showed an Upload Studio on the Xbox One. That was the first time I'd seen it. Probably the same for you as well, Al. But that was a cool with Malcolm, who we've mentioned numerous times on the show.
Hold on, sorry to interrupt. I'm actually looking through. So if you go to our YouTube channel and then search by the oldest, there's 6 videos with like a yellow sort of banner at the top, which are the videos. So we've got Console Shock 2013 episode 1, the pilot. So that must have all been about flying games. Console Shock episode 2, the Game Boy Advance. And you have those little shows a little preview. It's Al and Trev running around the shop with light guns shooting each other.
Oh yeah.
Then we got Street Fighter 2 episode, and then Trev's wearing a Hertha Berlin football shirt. And then there's 3 episodes, all from the Eurogamer Expo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. If I recall, I think we did the first episode, and then I went on holiday to Canada. I then came back. I'm pretty sure that I'd come back before we did episode 2, and at that point, I had no plans to move to Canada. I think it was after episode 2 that I made that decision that I was going to move back, potentially permanently, which, after all these years, obviously has been the case.
Yes.
And and I remember sort of saying, like, obviously we'll continue doing these shows, but there's obviously a point where I'm going to have to depart.
Yeah, that's basically where those video ones came to. And I don't know what would have happened if you stayed. We probably would have kept doing them. I would like to think we would have kept doing them to this day in that form. But at least also, I mentioned it already. We managed to keep it going anyway. But and it's great that we've got you back on. I think I don't know if the Eurogamer one came before we filmed like the Street Fighter one, which is the last one I think, Stu, you just saw there.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's any sort of, because these are just the orders that I uploaded them to the YouTube channel at the time. So, it could have been. I mean, saying that though, it's episode 1, 2, 3, and then 3 special episodes. So part 1, part 2.
I think it was doing that
3.
order. Yeah, and I know that Malcolm was editing them, like the absolute legend that he is. He put a lot of work into editing all of that for us.
And he had all the gear with it. He brought the gear, didn't he, at Eurogame with the microphone.
Yeah. We couldn't have done that without him, in all honesty. Thank
you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Yes. Thank you.
Because also, it would have been super awkward with those 3 of us. So we had, Malcolm was happy just to film everything, and we could be in the episode then without having to jump between. We didn't have professional equipment to film stuff on, so. It was really great, and obviously Malcolm would help with the regular episodes as well. Tripods and all that stuff. We could get decent footage. But yeah, so that's what happened basically. Al, you moved to Canada, and that's where you've been ever since, isn't it?
Yeah. It was kind of unexpected to some degree, and then it became kind of like, oh, I definitely want to go back. And then it was, well, I could go back for 3 months, and then it was, well, I could do like a 6-month work experience, and then it was just like, for all the effort I'm putting in, I might as well just move there. That's kind of how it kind of progressed, really. And it was one of those things where it was kind of a bittersweet thing, because I did know that I was kind of giving up doing the show, which I was having so much fun doing, with the kind of partnership that we'd had for all this time. But it just also, at that point in my life, it just felt like it was the right thing to do, was to move to a new place. And to be honest, without getting sort of political or anything like that, but certainly, at least with regards to COVID, I think my timing could not have been better.
Definitely.
And especially like in Canada's not doing too great, but Nova Scotia, relatively speaking, is a pretty safe place right now.
I mean, are all your pubs open and shops? What are the rules there at the moment?
So like most things are pretty much open. Some places have reduced hours. We did end up with a second spike. So it used to be that you could still go into restaurants, and then they kind of stopped that. I've kind of lost track as to whether you're allowed to actually dine in. I think you can. I know the mall allows you to go to their food court and you can eat there. And they've obviously got things sort of spaced out and stuff. But yeah, the rules are pretty lax at the moment. But the moment we started getting our second spike, they were very quick to lock things down, and we were back out of that within about 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow,
so
that's good.
Yeah, the response has been really, really good. And they have what they call the Atlantic bubble. So all the provinces in Atlantic Canada initially were kind of locked off to each other, and then they opened up so you could travel anywhere within the bubble. And then there was border restrictions outside of that. And that, I think, was probably the smartest thing that they did to get a decent balance between sort of economic stuff and, but also being vigilant against everything going on.
That sounds
We've nailed it here in the UK. We've got our own variants, everything. They say
it's world beating. Number one.
We're going for the top. We're going for the moon.
It's a different planet right now to what you've put.
You can't do anything. I mean, look at my hair. It's ridiculous. I haven't had it cut since February.
His hair's so vibrant and flowing now. So wild.
Yeah.
I
can't remember the last time I went to a pub once in the summer, and we sat in the garden and had a pint. But you got to go in. You had to put your name down, and you had to do this. They only did tables, and it just wasn't, going to the pub. But anyway, that's things are getting better at the moment, so that's good.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, on a lighter note, we've obviously got an interesting perspective then, sort of video game wise, because Al, obviously, you collect video games, you had retro games, you had modern stuff, when you were back in the UK, and then you obviously have to plan to move over to Canada. So, there was obviously going to be some jarring sort of things to deal with. And obviously we know there's different TV systems, different power standards. What was the most sort of frustrating thing initially when you sort of moved over there in terms of like the video game side of moving to a different country like that?
So initially I had a ton of hardware and I just knew that it wasn't going to work. Like looking into the cost for buying a transformer to change the power voltages, and then you've got to get adapters because you're dealing with a PAL system going to NTSC. I just thought, for all of that money that I would be spending doing that, it's cheaper just to buy a North American version of that console.
Yes.
And so like I had, I had a GameCube, a Dreamcast, an N64, Mega Drive, and so on. I had all sorts of retro consoles, and I ended up having to give all of them away. I was either selling them or I gave a ton to yourself as well. And I took just the games. I bought the games with me. I thought a lot of it was I didn't have enough time to do as much research as I wanted to. But it was like, if I at least hit the games, I might be able to find a way to play those, get region-free stuff to be able to play them. And I arrived with like all my Nintendo games, my Mega Drive. Now, unfortunately, the Mega Drive and Master System ones weren't region locked. They will just play. So I got North American versions of like the Mega Drive. So I got a Genesis for the first time in my life.
Oh, cool. And, which one did you get?
Yeah, and
you got the original Model 1 or the...
I ended up with the Model 2 again. And it was one of those, I could get one with Sonic built in, which is what I always wanted as a kid. But it's like, you know what? No, I'm going to stick to the Alex Kidd model. I just couldn't break away from just the nostalgia of what I had as a kid and the one that I just had to give up before moving to Canada.
Yeah.
But not everything worked. Most of the games did. There was a few that didn't. And I can't recall what they were off the top of my head.
I know the Mega Drive does have some sort of slightly spotty region locking. There's sort of certain...
Yes, some games had it.
Yeah.
And, I know the
some
Japanese games
struggled.
They didn't physically fit into the cartridge slot, but
yeah, that was at least the good thing, is that all the cartridges are the same, apart from the Super Nintendo. And
completely different, wasn't it?
Yeah, I to this day I still prefer the the Japanese and the European version of the Super Nintendo. I've shown it to friends over here, and they're like, "No, we prefer the North American one."
Of course,
I think a lot of it is it's just you love the one that you grew up with.
Of course, 100%
is the big thing. But I still love the design. But yeah, the cartridges are a completely different shape, so they didn't fit. So I had to get an Action Replay cartridge that you can put in, and it's got a little toggle on the side. And what you would do is you would plug the Action Replay cartridge in. You would plug the PAL cartridge on the top, and then in the back you would plug in just any North American cartridge. So I ended up getting Super Mario, and I had that in there. And what it would do is it would read the region of the card plugged into the back, and the card on the top is the one that would actually play the game for. And again, this worked for like half of my library. A lot of the games it does not work with. And that was one of the things I just found. Even my GameCube, I got a North American GameCube. Half of the games work. There's a Spider-Man game. I think it's Ultimate Spider-Man. And there's a level where you're having to go around and pick up stuff. And if you pick up the blue things, like the blue orbs, you get points. And if you hit the red ones, you lose them. And when you're playing it on... because there is a 50 and 60 hertz difference. When you're playing it on the North American one, it's all purple.
Yeah.
The blue and the red, they both look the same shade of purple, which makes the game completely unplayable, even though technically it does work, just with very bad colors. So it's not the easiest transition. I also do have some British hardware with me, though, which I didn't expect. Because I somehow lost, I don't know how you lose one of them, but I had the crystal original Xbox, the sort of transparent see-through.
That would be difficult to lose.
Yeah, I somehow lost it. I had no idea where on earth it went. I had all the games, and I lost the console. I knew, I was pretty sure it was at my dad's, but we couldn't find it anywhere. And so I ended up getting rid of those games because I was like, well, there's not really any point anymore. And just before Christmas, my father sent me a load of stuff for me that he'd managed to find, including, and he never even told me before he shipped it. He had it as a surprise. So this original Xbox arrived. And of course, now I've got this problem where I now have an original Xbox, but I don't have the games for it. And I still, again, to buy the transformer to get it to work in Canada.
Yeah. You would need a step-up converter.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, I remember watching LGR years ago, and he got a Spectrum, and he had to have a special converter for the power, another converter to convert the RF signal, and then it was all these different things he needed just to get this little tiny machine going where he was. But yeah, I can imagine it was a nightmare.
Yeah, so I've got it sat in the other room, and I have no idea what to do with it. Because I think it's just going to cost far too much to be worth investing in getting that one running. If I want to sell it, that's difficult to sell. And it's one of the reasons why I've still got all my games, even the ones that I can't play, is because I don't really know how I'm going to sell it. Trying to ship them to the UK is going to cost an absolute fortune. Because that was another thing. Even getting them shipped here was a lot of money. Shipping them back, nobody's going to want to buy them on eBay and pay the shipping fees when they can just get those ones from somebody in the UK.
The palette, Xbox is annoying because even though the Xbox, anything other than the PAL version supports HD, so there's certain games that have a 720p mode. Some even have a 1080i mode on the original Xbox, but only on the NTSC version. So you can have the same game. The game code, even in the PAL version, has that 720p mode, but it's locked out on the PAL version. So the PAL Xbox is kind of the worst one to get. Obviously, we had no choice, but we were like, when it was out, when we were, I guess, most of us probably would have been in either in our late teens and 20s out of us lot. But so no one would want to buy one really that you were in Canada. So yeah,
I mean the only thing is that it was a limited edition with it being like the crystal model. So the only thing that I could think of doing is selling it to somebody who wanted to change the case, turn their existing one into that.
I was going to say that to you. That's what you should do is get your North American one and sort of pop the insides into the sort of the crystal case. I don't know if that's a weekend project or something. It could be quite useful to do, but
I somehow feel that would be cheaper than trying to get it to actually run here in Canada. I genuinely do.
It's interesting.
A case of actually, if you sold it and put it on there, all plays the rare European games, and people who are collectors might go, I want to get a European one so I can play Kevin Keegan's Club Football Manager or something. And, I don't
the other thing is
the case, but
the only other problem I have is that was in storage somewhere in my dad's house, likely in the garage, and I've already had a few things there that broke down. That ended up with liquid damage and stuff. So I have no idea if it even works, and I can't plug it in to test.
No.
So I think it's really just going to have to be a cosmetic thing more than anything. I think that the hardware I miss the most, though, is the Dreamcast and all the accessories, because I had light guns, I had the fishing rod, which you could use with Soul Calibur.
You could,
yeah. It was the motion controls before we was using it.
It's very cool.
Yeah, so it's basically a Wiimote, but you could use it for Soul Calibur. That was a lot of fun. I had tons of accessories for that, and I think that of all the consoles that I can't play anymore, I think the Dreamcast is the one that I miss the most.
That sucks. So what? So you didn't bring that one over with you then? That was one that you had to get rid of.
Yeah, I have the games. I do have the games, and that one I think is probably easier to get going. In all honesty, because you can get boot discs and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's more just the amount of peripherals that I had for it. I had managed to collect most of the Sega made peripherals, and I think that's just where things would start to get to a point where it just gets stupid expensive to get back to that, because collecting's expensive is the thing.
Yeah, especially what Dreamcast is one of those sort of consoles that is on its own. I mean, it's also the fact that there's games that if you were able to bring over, and you say you managed to bring some of those games over with you, there are issues with the PAL versions if you're trying to run them in a 60 hertz unit. They're a game that if it's a game that wasn't optimized, which a lot of games weren't, probably most, I would say, it'll be fine. It'll run fine on 60 hertz on the Canadian / North American version of a console. But then there's some games that were PAL optimized, so they'll run too fast, or the music will play weird, and you kind of have to. Yeah. Did you have a lot of them that you found that out with when you tried to play them?
Kind of. Like with my GameCube, again, I have a bootloader disc that allows me to do that. And then you've got to hope that the PAL version actually supports both 50 and 60 hertz so that you can switch to it. A lot of the time you just don't know until you try it. just hit or miss. And there's some games that I've had on other consoles, like Crazy Taxi. I was getting a real hankering to play Crazy Taxi again after so many years, and so I've ended up just buying a North American port of it on the GameCube.
That actually did have 60 hertz mode, I think, for the Dreamcast version. Yeah, back in the day.
And it works well enough. Like I'm more than happy with it on the GameCube. I think the resolution was a little bit better on the Dreamcast, if I recall. It still has the original soundtrack, which not every port did.
Yeah, that's what kills it, isn't it? All the shops have been changed as well, which they messed with.
Yeah, but it still has the GameCube and the Dreamcast still have the original soundtrack that they used in the arcade.
Yes.
Whereas I think the Xbox one, for example, didn't. I think that lost a lot of the music.
It's got some of it, but then they've replaced some of it with other Offspring songs. So it's not exactly the same. No, it's probably one of the better ones though, out of the newer-ish ones that come out. Crazy Taxi 3, I think, isn't it? Is the one that's on the Xbox. But so yeah, I mean, there's that issue, the 50 versus 60 hertz thing. So I mean, have you then gone ahead? Did you go ahead and just thought, I'm just going to replace everything? Have you made a big effort to do that, or have you kind of just given up? Or
I started doing so. I was also looking at trying to sell a lot of stuff online, sort of totaling up what some of them would be worth. As a collector's thing. I've even got there's a Disneyland one that I've still got with the box for that the original Nintendo, which is kind of cool. But eventually, it became sort of time and effort. I just struggled with that. In all honesty, it just became just not worth it. So everything's just in storage at the moment, and a lot of it is just me spending the last few years just trying to wrap my brain as to what am I actually going to do. And I think I'm just sort of waiting for the right opportunity to crop up. If I see that somebody's looking for something in that range, then maybe then. But it's not something that I really rushed to. I've also taken a slight detour because I've started getting into Arcade 1-Up, which is becoming a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, very expensive. They're not cheap, but they're kind of. I think they're worth the money if you've got the space and the inclination to do it. So you bought you just got one, or have you got nuts on it and got them all? Or?
So I bought one, and then I bought an upgrade to change the marquee for it. So I ordered the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with which also has Turtles in Time for it. Then I bought a light up marquee for it, and then I bought the X-Men versus Street Fighter cabinet, and then I bought the Miss Pac-Man countercade that they do, and the Turtles one hadn't even arrived at this point. Like, I was just spending so much time just getting wrapped into just the feeling of having these arcades that I bought 3 of them before the first had even arrived. And that's when it was like, this is going to be a very expensive problem. And just last week, they announced a whole new line that they're bringing out, and there's reports that they're bringing out even more this summer. So now I'm kind of holding off till summer because there's already 3 cabinets that I want to buy right now. And so I just need to kind of see, well, what else are they potentially bringing out?
Star Wars arcades are really cool, isn't it? It's got like a proper little thing to sit down, like a turret almost type thing. I think is there like a Sega doing an Outrun version as well for arcade?
They've already released. It's a sit down arcade for Outrun that has a few different titles on it. So you get Outrun, there's Turbo Outrun, Outrunners, and Power Drift.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
like a karting one, and the feedback's been pretty good.
On the steering wheel and the clutch and everything, it's really cool. Yeah.
So I think
fit in your flat then, or house, or actually where is that the setup you've got at the moment?
So I decided to turn my spare room, which wasn't getting used really by anyone. So I got rid of the bed and I replaced it with a treadmill. And then suddenly I had room for these arcade cabinets. So now I've got these 3 in there. And I'm looking in there going, well, I could probably realistically fit another 2 in there. And then I look into my kitchen. It's like, I've got 2 bar stools. I don't ever use those bar stools other than to hang coats on. So if I remove those, that's another 2. If I move a table in the corner of the room, that's another 1 over there. And I'm starting to just think about, what can I move around or get rid of to make room for these? And the scary thing is realizing I do have the room for them, which is a problem.
It becomes an addiction.
It does. I'm having to be very, very careful. And this is the thing, that yes, they are expensive, but they are also very inexpensive at the same time when you consider how expensive it is to buy an original arcade machine.
Yeah.
And also the maintenance costs as well. The arcade one-ups are just a perfect balance for having in the home.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point because we mentioned earlier already, like Heart of Gaming, which is the place in how you might remember it from when you were still in the UK. It was just kind of starting up at that point.
Yes, yeah.
Container in Acton, I think, in those days.
That's
but,
right,
yeah. But then he moved to a shopping centre in Croydon, and he's got also the arcade set up. Me and my girlfriend Tina have been there several times. Actually, it's just a cool place to go and like play loads of old games, like, you know, all the famous ones, Daytona, you know, Sega Rally, Time Crisis. You know, he's got the console set up as well, and to play as well. But yeah, I mean, for him, a chap that runs it, really nice guy. Like half the battle for him, like nearly all the battle probably, is like just trying to keep these things running. You know, I mean, the House of the Dead I played on in there, even that had like the monitor was dying. And he's trying to he was telling me about how he's trying to get the parts for it. And he's got a whole walled off section. He had Daytona behind there and it wasn't working. He was trying to find someone to fix it because there isn't necessarily technicians that you could just call up like you could in the 90s when these were just like when there was the warranties were still going. So he has to find specialists. You know, he knows that he's worked out some of it himself, how to repair this stuff, but it's not even if you know how to do it, it's getting the parts. And part of me thinks that maybe it's just better off just building a bunch of MAME cabinets, or maybe even getting a load of arcade one-ups. I know it's not the original, but the money you would
to it's quite funny if you read the reviews of Heart of Gaming. It's something like he's got 3.9 stars from maybe 200 reviews, and there was about 20 or 30 reviews, all from the same day. Was I went there, and then he was saying he was using MAME and it wasn't the proper thing. It's piracy, and someone got in there and found out he was using MAME or had one of those like a jammer board which had like 100 games on, and wrote about 30 or 40 Google reviews, just absolutely slating him for
one dude
not having the original hardware.
That's ridiculous.
I think as time goes on, I mean, some of these machines are several decades old. And it's not going to be realistic to be able to have that. And when you're going to an arcade, you're going for the experience. And I think that as long as, like, if you are emulating with MAME, as long as you're not impacting the experience of being in an arcade, that should be fine. And if anything, it kind of opens up a little bit more. And I certainly know that in the Arcade 1-Up community, you have two sort of polar viewpoints of, people who will get an arcade machine because they love the artwork. They will rip out the internals. They'll replace it with a Raspberry Pi and put MAME and put their own ROMs on and stuff. And they'll have like just one cabinet dedicated for every game you could possibly want to play. Then there's people like myself who I remember and love the experience of going into an arcade. And so I would be much happier just having multiple arcade machines, which in themselves are still good because a lot of them have like 2 to 4 games. They've released some legacy ones which have 12 games built in, but you're still kind of limited by what's available, because that was always the thing. You went to an arcade thing, and you don't have access to every arcade ever made. You just have whatever's available in the cabinets that they had, and I much prefer that experience.
I mean, I think ultimately as well, like the parts will just die, and then there's no replacements being made. You're going to have to put a MAME in there. You'll be able to keep the cabinet, and well, maybe not the monitor. That will go. You might have to pop a TFT or an LCD panel in there. I mean, I was actually on holiday when before the second lockdown happened in Minehead, and there was an arcade at a seaside town. And I went to an arcade there. Me and my girlfriend went to one, and it had like Jurassic Park, Lost World, the Sega light gun game. Yeah. And straight away when I sat in, it was like one that you went into like almost like a photo booth. You went in and you sat down. And the guns are mounted on the thing. And it was like, cool. It's the original sort of setup. But as soon as I started, as I went in there and sat down and looked at it, it was obvious that it had been this is a main well, it was the original cabinet, the original like sit-in cabinet, but it was a flat panel screen that was about the size that the original one was, so it kind of did fit in pretty well, along with like some kind of like a Wii sensor, which you couldn't see. We managed to hide it in there fairly well. And the guns have been modified just to to be used with a Wii sensor. And it's obviously I didn't see the setup, but it must have been main, because I've used main to play like Virtua Cop and Time Crisis, and you just use a Wii sensor bar and a light gun. I've got quite an expensive light one that's kind of a one that looks like an arcade light gun, but you can use pretty much anything, like a Wiimote, if you want. And they basically did that, but I wasn't sat there sort of like, oh my god, how dare they? This is main. I hate this. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was pretty much the same, setup as it would have been before, except for the screen and the screen. Really, I was still the same light guns. It was still the artwork was the same and everything. So I think if it's like that, I'm quite happy for that to happen, because ultimately, you won't be able to get replacements for this stuff.
No, I mean, when you look like 2 or 3 decades old like hardware, it's unreasonable to expect that to last going forward. But as you're saying, like the enclosure, the actual cabinet itself, and the artwork, the thing that that is like all the original bits that you see and touch, as long as that is still in decent nick, then I'm completely all for people replacing the internals. To still provide you that same experience that you would have had. I think that's absolutely fine.
And I think the cabinet you can realistically maintain as well, isn't it? Because you could just, you could the artwork, you could in theory, touch it up and restore it, even replace it with a new panel or something with the same artwork on if needed. I mean, obviously, you might be getting into a little bit of territory of, well, is it the same cabinet if you've had to replace literally everything? But if it looks the same,
how many boom handles and how many boom heads?
Yeah, that would be I
would trigger.
Oh, that's like, how many items have to be changed for it's like different. That's like a philosophical kind of creepy debate we could get into, but it's what we have to accept, I think. And the interesting thing about Arcade 1-Up is, like, I'm actually waiting, but I'm not. I think like they had a really good head start on everyone, thinking, people are going to want all these arcade machines so we can make them. I think people like Namco and Sega have cottoned onto it a little bit now. I thought, why are we licensing our shit to these guys? We made these games. We can make our own Arcade 1-Up. And that's why I don't think we've seen like a Daytona yet, or a Virtua Fighter or Time Crisis. I think they're going to make their own ones, as opposed to licensing them to Arcade 1-Up.
I'm not sure, because they have a licensed Outrun.
Yes.
And I think part of it is that the hardware that they're using, like this is my understanding from what I've read, for people who've spoken to the company, that they are 100% titles that they want to bring, because they know that that's what a lot of people want, is like the Time Crisis and so on. And especially House of the Dead and Daytona are like two big killer games that are popular, that people want. But I think just the hardware that they're using inside there still has to get to that point where they can provide that amount of power at a reasonable price point for the way that they're doing it, because they're not just installing MAME, because that would be the easiest thing to do. I mean, when you have people with these boards, they don't modify the boards; they have to remove them and replace the entire internal hardware. They're not just flashing and I think that there's also like they have to be careful on the selections that they put into a single cabinet. Like they've had only a limited number of being able to mix properties as well.
Yeah, because there's issues there, isn't there, with licensing and everything.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that they're not going to bring them out. I think that is the plan at some point. I think they haven't reached that point in development to be able to do so yet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sega might be, testing the water if they are going to do their own one, because obviously released that Astro Mini, which had Virtua Fighter, although apparently it runs really badly. Virtua Fighter.
But how weird is it though that Sega ended up making like all the arcade machines that we love, and then they were making consoles, and then they became a software only company, And now that they could be returning to making arcade machines, but not in the traditional sense, but home arcades. It's kind of bonkers. The
arcade, arcade.
Yeah.
It's but they're so frustrating though, Sega. I mean, obviously, I think we're all fair to say that we're all sort of Sega fanboys, but the amount of games that we get another re-release of Sonic 1 every single bloody generation of a new console, and Streets of Rage was like, okay, we got it. We've got enough of that now. I want things like Golden Axe 2 or Golden Axe Revenge of Death. Although we did get that like on the Astro Mini. Daytona, Outrunners in like its own as a release on Switch and things like that. It just withholding all of these amazing like Sega games so the amount of Saturn games that they could do. I know Saturn emulation is difficult, but if they really got M2, the guys that do all these amazing retro things, I'm sure they could probably work it out. And they're just holding stuff.
Yeah, Daytona's had a really messy run of ports as well over the years.
I quite enjoyed the 360 one.
I think that was like the first one that was actually like true to the original.
I would say the first Sega Saturn release. Obviously, the frame rate was really low, and obviously the popping was awful, but it played really well. Very close to the arcade. Everything in between until the 2011, is it? The 2011 Daytona USA on the Xbox and PS3. Yeah, everything in between. I think I played all of them and got some degree of entertainment out of them. I remember getting Daytona CCE on the Saturn when it not long after I borrowed it off of 8. Not long after it was out, and I quite liked it. But playing it now, I'm like, the handling is a bit crap, and the Dreamcast one I really liked at the time. But again, I go back to that. I'm like, it's kind of, the handling's a bit weird, and it's like all the cars are on ice on that one. It's a shame because it looks awesome. It's like 60 frames a second. It looks better than the original, actually. Digital Foundry did that amazing like hour-long episode on Daytona. So go and watch that, to see all those different weird ports. But there's even things like just thinking right now, like Afterburner Climax on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. They need to re-release that, and Outrun 2. God, they're like, the Switch. That'd be perfect for something like the Switch.
Yeah.
So they did virtual racing. I bought that about a year ago on the Switch, and that was absolutely, 60 frames a second. It just felt so good, and I sat there and played it quite a lot because it was generally a good port. I was like, please do the same with Sega Rally.
I mean, you could do a pack. I could do a Sega Arcade multi-pack of Sega Rally, Virtua Racing, Daytona in one, and people will go nuts.
Yeah, but Virtua Racing, they like the changes that they made, I thought were just a beautiful balance between keeping the original stuff but still upgrading it so that at least it looks a little bit smoother. Like there's not as many jagged lines. I actually have that for the Switch, and I'm using a PlayStation 3 steering wheel through a USB adapter.
Oh wow!
Play that. So I just hooked that up onto my desk. My computer monitor is a TV, so I can just switch between it. It's a 40-inch display right in front of me. Having driving games with that is just fantastic. So I have Outrun, I have Virtual Racing, and then I've got like Grid Auto Sport for some modern stuff and things. It's a lot of fun doing it that way. But I'm really impressed with what they did with Virtual Racing, because they could have just done it pixel perfect. I prefer that they went the direction that they did to at least modernize it a little bit.
Yeah, basically take away the pop-up. Don't change the graphic style or anything, or increase the amount of polygons. Keep it identical, but get rid of the pop-up and bump the resolution up to like 1080p, and then that's all we want, really. And they do a great job of that. Again, I'm like, it's just be nice if Sega were a bit more proactive in getting some of their other arcade. A lot of arcade games that never got a perfect port. Sega Rally 2, the Dreamcast version was like good. I quite liked it, but it still wasn't as good as the arcade. Probably the first Sega. Oh, actually, there's the PS2 one, isn't there, for the first Sega Rally? So
I'm playing that at the moment. Sega Rally 2006, which only ever came out in Japan.
And you got the disc, didn't you, with the 95 Sega Rally?
Yeah, with Sega Rally 95. I'm playing that through a CRT screen. It's generally all absolutely awesome game, and the best way to play Sega Rally. So, but I'd love to see that on the Switch or the Xbox One or the PS4. It would just be such a, they got. I mean, they're not sitting around there going, "Okay, guys, how do we not make money?" They've done their research, and I'm sure that they're.
I'm not saying it's easy, because it isn't. Because there's emulation issues and everything to solve, especially with the Model 3 systems. Like Daytona USA 2 and Virtua Fighter 3. That they're really difficult things to get working. And there's only I've got an emulator of the Model 3 on the PC called Super Model. And even that isn't perfect, as you'll see, like polygons flying out and all kinds of texture, weird stuff going on. But it's fairly good at this point. You can play a mostly accurate, most of the Model 3, like Star Wars Trilogy Arcade, which never come out on anything. That's probably one of the main ones people think of, isn't it, with Sega Model 3. That runs really well. On the controls a bit weird, though, because it was like a joystick you had to use for that game, for the whole thing. But obviously they couldn't just release that, because obviously they need Disney to be on board with that, and whoever's got the license to Star Wars games is like a whole mess of crap with that. But a lot of people are saying, like, I was chatting to someone else the other day about, I really want like WWF WrestleFest to come out. Why don't they bring that out? They need to bring it out. And it's the same thing with an N64 Mini. Like, oh yeah, I hope they put the WCW wrestling games on it. Why won't they do it? And it's like, well, you can't, because for one, WWF own or WWE own WCW now, have done for 20 odd years. The wrestlers themselves might not want to be involved, so you'd have to sort of swap the models out with generic ones or with the current ones. That's like
that comes down to the problem with if you all remember a classic film. You might be able to go on a streaming service. You can go on Amazon. You can buy it on DVD, and chances are you can play it. And the problem now with video games is there's so many games out there that if you're thinking, I really want to play that game, right? How do I do it? And you've got to go down the emulation route, or you've got to go down the buying really old hardware route, or or buying it on a compilation, or there's all these different sort of barriers to entry for playing sort of these old games, and you might be able to get it going, but you might not be fully what's it called legally playing it. And
like you've also got DOM to throw into the mix there as well. So as an example, I kind of went off Steam for a while, because I bought Alien versus Predator through Steam to be able to play, and I decided to play it on original hardware. So I had a very old PC, and that was running Windows XP. It's playing a game that was developed during the Windows XP era and is completely compatible. They then decided to upgrade their launcher to include Chromium built in, which meant it was no longer compatible. Now, I saw that as, okay, the launcher, that's fine. That's not going to be a problem, because I'm not looking at downloading any more games for it through there. I'm just going to be happy just still playing Alien versus Predator whilst I'm in the middle of it. And then I went to launch it, and it didn't work, because the DRM to actually launch it required the Steam launcher. And I'm like, great. So I have a game that is fully compatible with Windows XP, running on original hardware with the original OS, and it still won't work because of modern DRM.
Well, exactly.
And GOG.com bought it from there instead. And that's fine.
GOG, they're a great sort of buying sort of the older PC games, but then there's
I always go there first.
Like yourself, that want to play, Quake 1, Quake 2, and they want to have a Voodoo 2 card, and you've got to have all this old hardware sort of all combined together if you want to play X or Y game on the original hardware. And it's almost sort of it's next to impossible, and especially if it's a niche game that you might be, I'm really into that game. I used to play that with my brother, so you'll just shout out of luck, really, if you want to play these old games, and you just
and like you're saying as well, like with Voodoo cards and things like that, like you may have the hardware, but are the drivers still available? Are they easy to track down? So again, there's so many other things, and this kind of goes back to the arcade thing, that hardware doesn't last forever, software doesn't last forever. There's going to be these challenges. But at the same time, we don't want the history of games to suddenly disappear and for us to not be able to experience them, or introduce our kids to those as well, and so on.
It don't even have to be that old. I mean, I had a terrible time getting Gears of War, the PC version of the first Gears of War working, because it needed games for Windows Live, which is a service that Microsoft are kind of killing. Well, they kind of have killed it, but it won't load. It won't launch without that. And I was able to get it going, but it took a hell of a lot of like farting around with to get it configured and to get games of Windows Live working with my Xbox Live account. I know, because people could just say, "Oh, just get Gears of War Ultimate Edition," but it runs like complete ass on. So I thought if I get the old version, that'll run great on like a modern computer, and it does when you get it working. It runs really nice. You can get it at 60 frames a second. You can bump up the resolution way beyond and you can also just play the 360 version. But if you want to have the best version of the game from that time period, you need to you can go for the PC version. So it's games that aren't even that old. I mean, I've had trouble with games from like 2013, 2014 that the launcher doesn't work anymore in Windows 10 or something, so you can't launch it. Or the installer's 32-bit or something, or 16-bit, and Windows 10 doesn't support 16-bit or 32-bit installers. You have to manually click and drag the install files to a directory, where the installer would have done it for it to do it. It's all the
barriers of entry that just someone might brilliant, right, I've got the files, and now they just get an error, and then there's. If you see one error, you might try and solve it. If you see 2 or 3 errors, fuck it. I'm done with this. And I've got better things to do on my Sunday afternoon than try and get a game that I own working from 7 years ago.
Yeah,
it's just frustrating.
I think we can all agree that all we need really is for all these game companies to just port everything over to the GX 4000, and then I think we're good.
You would be happy.
It needs to be on the GX 4000. That's underrated.
All that power lurking inside that.
Only 30 games. I mean, there's just there's so many more games. There's so much potential.
32 games. Get it right. 32 games.
I'm going to be saying that. Yeah. Right, so Al, thank you so much for joining us after many, many years since the last.
Thank you for having me on. This has been fantastic.
Obviously, we're definitely not going to wait, 8 odd years before getting you back again. Make it as regular a thing as we can, considering the time differences and everything. But it's been really great catching up. It was great reminiscing about how Console Shock started. And it's great to hear that you're getting on good in Canada and everything, and hopefully, you'll be able to finally get some kind of a replacement for, or someone to buy that Xbox from you.
If everybody wants it, get in touch.
Someone's listening now. Yeah, get in touch if you want a PAL Xbox in Canada. So, Stu, where can you find us on the interwebs?
Right, find us on consoleshock.net is our website, and find us on Facebook under Console Shock, Twitter, I think it's Console Shock UK. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all the big podcast clients. You can find us all across them, and I think that's about it.
Cool. Well, check us out on all of our different channels. Check out some of those 2013 episodes. You can see Al in those episodes on our YouTube channel. They're still there, literally, like Stu said, brightly coloured, yellow and red with 2013 on there. You can't miss them.
Scroll down to, I think, some of the older ones, and
might have to get down to the bottom there, but they're there, going strong. So please check those out, and thank you for listening as always, and we'll see everybody in the next one. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Take it easy.
Bye.